He said, okay, let's begin. Didn't have the camera on. Bear with me. Anyway, today is the first day of Colorado Contracts and Regulations. So if that's where you wanted to be, you're in the right place. And my name is Jim McCloskey, and those of you who are watching this on DVD or YouTube, my number is 303-913-1984. 303-913-1984. And feel free to call me. And I'm here when you're studying, you have a question or whatever, but you're going to make friends in this class you're going to have the rest of your life. You'll probably form a little study group. You'll probably be bouncing things off of each other more so than me. I might be up here saying something 40 times, and then you ask somebody else, they say it a little bit different, and you get it, and you get it. So feed off of each other during this course. You're going to find this course extremely interesting. You're going to learn more about real estate than you ever thought it was possible to learn about real estate. And this course is the toughest course you'll ever take in your life. It's tougher than any college course you've ever had or postgraduate course you've ever had. But we are experts in getting you through this and getting you through the final exam. What's going to happen? This course is an elephant. There's only one way to eat an elephant, and that's one bite at a time. And that's what you guys will be doing. And for the first half of this course, you're going to be totally lost. Totally lost. Not partially. Totally lost, because there's so much coming at you, because you're learning a new language. The language of real estate. And there's only one way to learn a language, and that's repetition. So don't freak out. I'm telling you that so you don't freak out, okay? Because it's going to be that way. Everybody starts at a different module. Some of you have been here already for one or two or three modules. Nobody's taken this module yet. You're all in the same boat as far as this module. But there's so much of this course that other people have had, and I'll be up here talking about something, and these people over here are just nailing it. And you guys who are brand new are going, am I really that stupid? I don't even know how to spell what he just said. No, they're not brilliant. They've just heard it enough times where it's starting to sink in now. And that's what's going to happen. About halfway through, it starts clicking. Then you get excited. You can't get enough of it. What do you think? You've been here for a while. Yeah. You can say yes if you agree. And really, and that's what it is, guys. That's what this course is all about. Now, this course is going to be your life for the next 4.5, 6 weeks, whatever. And if you're driving in your car and you reach over and turn on your radio, you just flunked the state exam. You don't listen to the radio. You're going to be talking to yourself. What are the different types of deeds? What's an encroachment? What's the definition of an whatever? What the different types of deeds of trust? You're talking to yourself as you're driving. After you've been in this course, by the end of this week, if you're brand new, I have a glossary disc that I'll give you. And when you're driving around, put in that glossary disc, because this is the language of real estate. That's what that glossary disc is all about. I don't want to give it to you today. I want to wait till you're done with this week. I'll give one to you Thursday. Okay? And Jennifer actually will, and she'll work with you on that. So anyway, now, you wake up in the middle of the night, and you reach over and turn on the TV, you just flunked the state exam. You don't have a TV in your life, guys. What you're going to do, open up your big 3-ring binder, and look in that pocket, right in the front, Open up that big 3-ring binder, and look at what you have there. You've got a bunch of true-false questions. You've got a bunch for Colorado. You've got a bunch for national, okay? They look like this. Hundreds of questions. These are just true-false. We don't go over these in class because this tells you what the answer is and why that's the right answer. You're going to love this. So whenever you have a spare minute, you're eating breakfast, eating lunch, have these next to you and start getting these true-false ones right. You'll really be glad you did. And once you pass that state exam, then you get your life back. Until then, you don't have a life. Remember that. I'll be someone say, did anybody, I'll screw up and say, did anybody see the news the other night? No, you didn't. You can't. You don't have a life, remember? So again, just make this is your life. Do yourself a favor and treat this course accordingly. It's for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. And you're going to very much enjoy this course. We keep it very light. We do more laughing than anything. We work extremely hard, but we make it fun. And like I say, we're very, very good at getting you through this course. So with that in mind, let's open up your manual and go to page 1-1. Might as well start at the beginning. Let's talk about this book a little bit. First of all, this is the pride and joy of the Real Estate Commission. And it's the worst indexed book in the history of the world. I think it is anyway. You can't find squat in this book. And so when I'm going, plus there's a ton of mistakes, plus they love to repeat themselves over and over again. I'm going to say put a star by this, highlight that. There's some highlights up here if you want one. They're a buck a piece. And use your highlights or whatever, and that's what you want to read. Put a star by this, highlight this. You're going to see a question on that either here in class or on the state exam or both. Other than what I tell you to read and mark, don't read anything else out of this book. Nothing. Nothing. Except where I say put a star by that. Don't go and say, I'm going to read some of this book. You'll be wasting your time and read a bunch of stuff. Either it says better in some other part of this curriculum, or it's wrong, or it's just a repetition after repetition after repetition. They love repetition. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. And it is essentially half of the state exam, is what we're going to be doing here for the next several days. So, with that in mind, you're on page 1-1. And look at the very first thing, reason for its enactment, licensing. Reason for licensing enactment. And highlight that. The Colorado Real Estate Broker License Law was passed to protect the people of the state of Colorado. What is the purpose of licensing? To protect the public. To protect the public is the purpose of licensing. Or to protect the people of the state of Colorado. You'll see it answered either way. Well, whether it's a real estate broker's license, a dentist, a lawyer, attorney, whatever, the purpose of licensing is to protect the public. This course was developed by the Real Estate Commission. And they didn't do this to help you get into real estate. They did this to keep you out of real estate. That's why you have to go through this course and why it's so hard, is to keep you out of real estate. We're not going to let that happen. When you get done with your course, you're going to be taking your state exam. The closest one to our school here is 1.5 miles away. It's right over on 49th and Independence, 50th and Kipling, essentially. Drive over there in literally 10 minutes easily. But we're going to be talking about getting your fingerprints and things like that between now and then. But again, you're going to be able to get down, take that exam, and one and done. Remember one saying, one and done. You're going to take that exam one time, and you never have to take that miserable thing again. When I first got my license, I started out as a salesperson. Then I got some experience, took some other courses, passed a miserable exam again, then I was a broker. In 1996, they grandfathered everybody who was a broker at that time. And I was already one long before that. But anyway, so now what's going to happen is we're a state that has single licensing. You're going to start out right out of the chute as a broker. Remember when I got mine, I started out as a salesperson. 1996 they changed it. Then I got some experience, took some other classes, passed another exam, then I was a broker. And that's how it works on virtually every state is like that. You guys are going to be a broker right out of the chute. Yeah, Marie?
No.
No?
Just listen.
Okay. How do you raise your hand then, really? Okay, now I'll know. Now I'll know. Okay. Okay. And that's what's going to happen. You're going to start out as an associate broker, and you're going to have a 2-year apprenticeship. You need that 2-year apprenticeship. Because you're going to get done with that state exam and you're going to go, how do I list homes? How do I use the multiple listing service? How do I show homes to the people who want to buy a house? That's what the first 2 years are about, to learn the mechanics of the business. Where do I go for information? How do I utilize information? After 2 years, you're going to come out of that 2-year apprenticeship. You're not going to be a real estate professional. That's what the next 20 years is all about. You are a professional. You know, lawyers don't come out of lawyer school being a professional. It takes experience before that happens. Any profession, again, maybe a doctor because they have such a huge apprenticeship also, but essentially, guys, that experience is invaluable. Nothing beats experience. Now, some other things. If all you wanted to do was pass the exam, you came to the wrong school. We don't teach to the exam. You're going to pass the exam because it's one and done. You're not allowed to flunk it. You will pass it the first time. But, again, your purpose is to get that exam done. I don't even want you thinking about it. What happens if I flunk it? When can I take it again? Call some other school and ask them. I don't answer that question. I don't even want you thinking that way. You're going to nail that exam the first time. And that's what's in your mind, totally. And you're going to be working with other people also in study groups. Get people's phone numbers when you're studying. You can do it on a conference call or whatever, just on, just talking to people, so that you can really make this work for you. We have our conference room, and that's where most people study, and it holds just about this whole class could fit in there. And sit there, and again, you have your study groups in there, and you're bouncing things off of each other. It works very, very well. Now, let's go over to second paragraph where it says, what the law does not cover. The law does not cover ethics. Put that down. The Real Estate Commission does not regulate ethics. So where do we learn ethics from? We learn ethics from the Colorado Association of Realtors, the National Association of Realtors, and there's 5 boards here in Denver plus Boulder. And once you join one of them, my main board I've always belonged to was the Jefferson County Board over on 10th and Wadsworth. That's the biggest one in the state. And whichever one you join, you belong to all of them. You have access to that entire database, 5 million people, just by joining one of these boards. You don't get the whole state, but Metro, Denver, and Boulder is what you'll do by joining one of those. And then they're going to have an ethics class you're going to take before they'll let you be a full-fledged member. And if you get a decent instructor, it's worth it. But nonetheless, you're going to need to get that ethics from them. Will you be forced to join it? Probably your broker will force you to join it. Because it's imperative. You can't use the MLS unless you're a member. We'll get into that later on as we're going through the courses also. Okay, let's go to page 1-2. Right in the middle of the page where it says A, the master file, highlight that. They're going to keep a master file on every one of us. They need to know where we're at, who we're working for, how they can get a hold of us. By they, I mean the Real Estate Commission. We're regulated by the Real Estate Commission. They're regulated by, look on page 1-3, and look at the enforcement section and see where it says the Real Estate Commission has the power upon its own motion to investigate any licensee's real estate's activities. You'll go your whole career and not get a complaint. It's very rare with you do, mainly because I have so many people covering our backs. We have the lenders, the inspectors, the title people. We talk about title a lot in this business. The appraisers, your broker that you're working for, other people in the companies you're working for. You just have the other broker you're working with in a deal. I take a listing on a property. I'm probably not going to sell it. I hope I do, but I probably won't. One of you will. You'll be what's called the co-oping broker, and you're going to bring the buyer in. Well, we're watching each other's backs during this deal. And again, because of that, it's very rare for a broker to ever get sued. We're also not a part of the contract. The buyer and seller are parties to the contract. We're part of the transaction, but we're not a part of the contract. Because of that, it's very rare for a broker to ever get sued. So don't get paranoid about that at all. But if you do get a complaint, if it's a written complaint, they have to investigate it. They're going to send it to you, you're going to answer it, they're going to send back an answer, you'll send that back, that answer, then they'll decide what to do. I was talking to one of the members of the Real Estate Commission a while back, and he said over half of them are just dismissed. Just dismissed. So, let's read that second paragraph under enforcement section. If the complaint against the licensee is of such a serious nature that it may result in disciplinary action against the licensee, a hearing may be held before an administrative law judge. Highlight that. I was talking to another member of the Real Estate Commission. He said it's been 3 years since any complaint's gone that far, where it actually goes before an administrative law judge. I'm just telling you that so you don't get paranoid, guys. Like I say, you'll go your whole career and never get a complaint, more than likely. And the judge is appointed by the Department of Personnel and Administration. The administrative law judge will make an initial decision of revocation, suspension, censure, or just dismiss it. Education courses, probation and fines can also be mandated. Maybe you made a mistake on a contract that you shouldn't have. And what they'll do, they'll send you to me. So you'll sit through this part of the contract course, because tomorrow, well, a couple sessions from now anyway, we're going to be going over the listing contract, and then a few more sessions we're going over the buy and sell contract, the sales contract. That's what it's called in Colorado. Write that down. The buy and sell contract. Every state has a different name for their sales contracts. Ours are called the contract to buy and sell. We'll be going over both of those virtually line by line. And so what happens, these people come in here and they are not happy. They have to go sit through this contracts class. I didn't do anything wrong. And they're usually sitting in the back and they're kind of moaning. Any you guys back there? None of you are them. Okay, good, okay. Anyway, but if that happens, no big deal. Come on over here, we'll make it as painless as we can for you. Find out where your problems were and let's correct them. And you can, and again, so they can make you take other classes or whatever. Education courses, probation, and fines can also be mandated. The highest fine that the Real Estate Commission can give you is $2,500. That's the highest fine they can give. Write that down too, somewhere there. $2,500 fine. And if written objections are not filed with the Commission within 30 days of the initial decision, in other words, they're going to contact you and say, you got this, you really upset this guy or this lady, they have a complaint against you, you have 30 days to answer. Then they'll answer your answer, you'll answer their answer, like I say, and then they'll make a decision on it, if it even goes that far. Most, let's say, close to half of them, or sometimes over half of them, are just dismissed. Within 30 days, the initial decision becomes final. If written objections are filed, the Commission may adopt the finding and initial decision of the administrative law judge, modify the disciplinary action, or refer the matter for rehearing. The Commission can also issue, highlight that, letters of admonishment. Letters of admonishment. That is the lowest form of disciplinary action there is. That's a slap on the wrist. Letter of admonishment. You'll hear it called letter of admonition. A letter of admonition. Lowest form of disciplinary action. It doesn't even go on your record. Now, in this enforcement section, see it right there, right above where we started there? Look at those two lines right above enforcement section. This is the website for the Division of Real Estate. Right there. Highlight that, guys. Remember, it's on page 3. Right there, highlight it so you remember it, because this is probably the only manual you'll ever have. Maybe not, but probably will be. So you'll be able to highlight these parts that are going to be pretty much the same forever. Now, the Real Estate Commission had a terrible, terrible website. And then a while back, and you'll find that, well, I'll say, yeah, 7 years ago, then I check it out later on, it turned out to be 12 years ago. I'll say 12 years ago, and all of a sudden it turns out to be 7 years ago. And I just can't keep track of these years, they just go by. So everything happened 10 years ago, okay? So 10 years ago, we hired this guy, his name is Sean Ryan. Write down his name, S-E-A-N S-E-A-N-R-H-Y-N-E. S-E-A-N-R-H-Y-N-E. Sean Ryan. And he came in and he redid the website. It's a wonderful website. Sean Ryan is like head of licensing down there. I hate to say that because he might have gotten a promotion or whatever. But generally speaking, Sean Ryan is one of your go-to people. When you call up, ask for Sean Ryan. I have texted him and emailed him at 7 in the morning and got an answer by 7:30 many times. That's how on the ball this guy is. Eric Turner, another one, Eric Turner, another guy at the Real Estate Commission that is really, really good at what he does. Both of these people are pretty much the head of licensing. Now when you call them up, don't tell them I told you to call them. Okay, just call them up. They'll get 100 calls sometime and I'll get a phone call, okay? Anyway, so just remember this and remember their website right there. Let's go to page 1-4. 1-4. Talk about license law, licensing law. And that's what this whole part, we're talking about, my main parts of this course, license law and contracts. License law and contracts. That's, you could say that's the course. Everything else is just an offshoot of that. So, it talks about what happens when you go to another broker. Let's just talk a little bit. You're going to go to this other broker. They're probably going to give you their stationery to use, maybe pay for your business cards. And this is real important. Some of you need to write this down. If you're ugly, don't put your picture on your business card. And you know who you are, okay? If you have to, put somebody else's picture on it, okay? Anyway, you see these ones where you have this guy and he's holding his dog and his dog's licking his face or something? I mean, come on, I just saw that while I'm eating, really? Anyway, so just use your head out there. Look at the bottom of the page there, 2A, and look at that number 1, about the 6th line up from the bottom of 1-4. Highlight these. When do we need a real estate license? When we're selling, exchanging, buying, renting, or leasing real estate. When we're offering to sell, exchange, buy, rent, or lease real estate.
Where is this? What number is that?
Pardon me?
What number is that?
It's 1-4, page 1-4, way down at the bottom, the 1, 2, 3 at the bottom. And we're number 3, selling or offering to sell or exchange an existing lease of real estate. Top of the next page. When we're negotiating, Colorado is one of the very few states where you can be an unlicensed assistant underneath somebody. If any of you have somebody who you know and they say, you know, I can't wait for you to get your broker's license, I need to find a home now, I need to sell my home now, come put your license underneath me as an unlicensed assistant, and we'll work that deal together. And I'll give you a good cut off of that deal, and once you get your license, I can pay you as an unlicensed assistant. I had a lady here, it's probably been about 4 months ago now, but she did that, and she sold an $835,000 house. Her cut after all splits and everything was over $18,000. She paid for this course like 12 times before she even finished it. So anyway, if anybody's interested in that, come see me. Come see me in my office, and we'll work something. We'll work it out, and make it happen for you. If you can wait till you get your license, that's the best way to do it. But anyway, The unlicensed assistant, what they can do virtually everything we can do, but they cannot negotiate. See that top of the page there, the number 4, negotiate. Above that, put down, fill out contracts. If we're filling out a contract, we have to be licensed as a real estate broker. If we're negotiating or filling out contracts. These unlicensed assistants can sit open houses, they can show people property, they can pass out literature, they can put on lock boxes on a home. Like I say, virtually everything we can do, but they cannot negotiate a contract or fill out a contract. They can, for listing, offering, attempting, or agreeing to list real estate, we have to be licensed. Auctioning, okay. This really gets weird, okay? An auctioneer, the guy up there, guy or lady, I know most of them are ladies now that are doing auctions for real estate. And what happens is that person who is auctioning real estate has to be licensed as a real estate broker unless there's someone in the crowd who's licensed that can do the contract. Then he doesn't have to be licensed, he or she. But all things equal, if they say, which of the following does not have to be licensed? The auctioneer is not one of those. They do have to be licensed. You're going to see that question in our finals. Hopefully you'll remember that. You will remember it if you get it wrong. You'll go, dang, I remember the first 10 minutes of class. We talked about that. This is the only time we're going to talk about this. The auctioneer does have to be licensed. But if there's someone in the crowd who's licensed, he doesn't have to be because they can fill out the contract. Buying, selling, offering to buy or sell, or otherwise dealing in options in real estate. I have a rent with option, where within the next year I can buy your house for X amount of money. And I have a heck of a deal on this house. And so I can wait and buy your house when my option expires, or I can sell that option. You come to me and you say, man, I've got a great deal on this house, on this option to buy this property. Would you sell it for me? I can sell it because I'm a licensed broker. So selling options in real estate. You don't see that too often, but you do see it. And let's go down to, well, let me ask you this. When you're selling your own house, do you have to be licensed? No, of course not. And either do developers. Isn't that what they're doing, just selling their own property? They don't have to be licensed. And either do the people who work for them. They don't have to be licensed either. Now, most home builders will require you to be licensed before you'll go to work for them, and then they have you put your license on inactive status. You're not competing with them. I worked that several years in the early 80s. I was selling new homes, guys, when the interest rate was 16 and 17% on houses. And back then, you didn't buy a home with a new loan necessarily. Of course, in a new home subdivision, it's all new loans, of course. But what you did back then, you paid $46 and you assumed that loan. If you could fog a mirror, you could assume that loan. They didn't check your credit, nothing. If you could sign that piece of paper, you own that house. Isn't that something? And then finally, we're going to talk about this in much greater detail in 1990. Well, let's talk about this. So the 1980s came. In 1980, Ronald Reagan was elected president. That's when we had these interest rates way just right through the roof. We'll talk about the Federal Reserve and a guy named Paul Volcker who was ahead of it during this time. Here in a few more weeks, a couple more weeks anyway. But what happened during that time is Reagan had a degree in economics, and this economy sucked. I mean, it was really, really bad. And what happened is in 1961, let's back up just a little bit, President Kennedy had the biggest tax break in the history of this nation, Democratic president. Kennedy is one of the greatest presidents we ever had. We'll talk about this when we get to lending in this course. But anyway, what Reagan did is he fashioned his tax decrease after what Kennedy did. This was in 1986. And everybody told you, all the left wings told him, oh, that's going to cut off the money coming into the government. No, it doesn't. Whenever you drop taxes, it increases the revenue to the government because it stimulates the economy so much. And Reagan said, bull, that's not going to happen. He dropped the highest rate from 90% down to 25%. And what happened, our economy just shot up like a rocket during that time. And he based it mainly on what Kennedy did. But what he did, Reagan, is he took away our write-offs on our boats and our cars and our personal loans. We can still write off the interest and the taxes on our primary residence. So far, we can do it today, maybe not tomorrow. We talk about this quite a bit. And if you hear a politician talking about getting rid of that tax write-off, that's the only tax write most people have in the United States. Remember who they are, and let's get them out of there. You know what politics mean? Poly means many, and ticks are a bloodsucker. They're politicians. We got to get the politicians out of there and get some businessmen in there. I'm not saying Trump's the answer, but we need businessmen in there. Anyway, so Reagan did this. Our economy shot up like a bullet. The powers that be said our interest rates on housing would never get below 10% again. Well, by 1990, interest rates had dropped so much that he said, okay, you can still assume a loan, but now you have to qualify for it. Before you didn't have to qualify. You just sign your name and fog a mirror, here's your deed. Pretty much, you know. And that's how it was. A question's coming at you, don't have to write it down, we'll talk about it several times. They're going to say whether an FHA loan, what's the FHA stand for? Federal Housing Administration loan, whether that loan is a qualifying assumption or a non-qualifying assumption depends on the date of the loan. Before 1990, you didn't have to qualify. After 1990, you did. You're going to see that on the state exam. Write that down if you want to. We're going to cover that many more times. Now, let's go down on page 1-5 and talk about the real estate broker does not apply to any of these. An attorney in fact, which is created by a power of attorney. I have a guy call me on Monday. And he said, Jim, he's the seller of the house or the buyer. He says, we have to move the closing on Wednesday. I had somebody in my family die and I have to go to the funeral. You move heaven and earth to never change a closing date, guys. That's how when deals can fall apart real easy, when you change closing dates. So what I'll tell him, I'll say, Joe, I'm so sorry, and I am. It's a shame that happened. But is there someone else who can sign for you? Someone you trust, either in your family or your neighbor or a good friend, where they can actually sign for you. You will give them a power of attorney. That's a very limited power to sign for them. The power of attorney creates an attorney in fact. See that number 1? Highlight that baby. Highlight it. A power of attorney creates an attorney in fact. Not an attorney at law, but an attorney in fact. You'll go your whole career and not use an attorney in fact. But you may. It's available to you in that circumstance or whatever. Then, any public official. So, let's say I'm not an appraiser, and I run for county assessor of Jefferson County. And I'm not a licensed appraiser, and I get elected. I don't have to be licensed because I'm an elected official. All the appraisers under me working for Jefferson County have to be. All the assessors, we'll talk about that in greater detail too later on in the course. But a public official, if they're elected, do not have to be licensed. And look at this next one. Any receiver, trustee, administrator, conservator, guardian, executor. Let's talk about these. What is a receiver? A receiver is someone who takes a property out of a probate action. A probate action is when someone dies and their estate or their property is probated. Every county has a probate court. And every deed to every house, every will is run through this probate court to make sure everything is the way the guy who died or lady who died, it turned out the way they wanted it to be. Now, let's talk about this. We have the receiver, and that could be the administrator. See that two words over, the administrator? Now, an administrator is someone appointed by the court to carry out its action because that person who died intestate, without a will. Intestate, I-N-T-E-S-T-A-T-E. They died intestate, without a will. And so what happens is this. Let's write this down. We'll talk about it a few more times. What type of deed brings the property? What type of deed brings the property out of a probate action when the deceased died intestate? What type of deed brings the property out of a probate action when the deceased died without a will? Intestate. What type of deed brings? What type of deed brings a property out of a probate action when the deceased died intestate? And the answer is a personal representative's deed. Personal representative's deed. He died without a will. So what's going to happen is the probate court is going to issue a personal representative's deed to bring that property out of that probate action. And either the receiver or the court will appoint an administrator to carry out that guy's actions, what he wanted to happen. Okay, they will appoint an administrator for the personal representative's deed. That's either a friend of the family, member of the family, a lot of times it's an attorney. Make sure it's somebody you trust. You have a lot to say if this should happen to you. Many estates just get ripped off phenomenally because of this administrator that the court appoints. So, we have the receiver who brings the property out of the probate action. We have the administrator that's appointed by the court to carry out its provisions. Then, what type of deed brings a property out of a probate action when the deceased died testate? What type of deed brings a property out of a probate action when the deceased died testate with a will? What type of deed brings a property out of a probate action when the deceased died testate with a will? Within your will, you name an executor to carry out your provisions. You name an executor to carry out your provisions. You name that in your will. And so what type of deed brings a property out of a probate action when the deceased died testate? An executor's deed. An executor's deed. Both a personal representative deed and an executor's deed are both fancy names for a quitclaim deed. We spend a lot of time on quitclaim deeds because they're very misunderstood. A lot of people think they're spelled with a CK. They're not. They're spelled with a T. And if you give somebody a quitclaim deed, you're quitting your claim to that property. You're giving that property away. And a lot of people don't realize that's what they're doing. Do you hear these things on the radio, TV? There's a new one every week. Same company, by the way. Come on in, we'll teach you how to do flips, but we don't want a lot of people. We just want 6 or 7 people to come join our team, and they make it sound so good. I tell you what, anybody been to one of those lately? Anybody have a story about one of those? I tell you what, guys, you hear one of those things. I've been to several of them just because of you. I want to make sure that you guys are protected. I went to this one and I sat down, about 25 people showed up on a Thursday night, and these people were so excited. And this lady comes up and she introduces the guru, and the guru comes in. Everything this guy said was either fraudulent or wrong. But he said, you don't have to get your real estate broker's license. That's a big tip-off. All you have to do is go on title with these people so you can control it. How do they go on title with people? They have the people give a quitclaim deed. They say, before we start, why don't you give me a quitclaim deed on your house? They don't tell the people that they don't own that house anymore if they give them a quitclaim deed. And as soon as he said that, I got up and left. And I controlled myself. I almost said I'll come see you on visiting day, but I didn't. I was being nice. So I'm walking out, and the lady who introduced the guru stopped me. She said, oh, you're leaving. I said, yes, I am. I said, I need some clarification on something. You said that you don't have to get a real estate broker's license, but you just go on title with those people. How do you do that? And she said, you use something called a quitclaim deed. I said, really? I said, the Attorney General would love to hear about this. By the time I said this, she was 10 feet in the other direction, walking as fast as she could, and those poor people who were in there. What they do is this, usually. That's free. The first night is free. It's kind of like drugs. The first one's free, okay? And then if you're picked by them, they'll have another meeting, and that meeting's only $1,200. Heck of a deal. And so sometimes as many as 40, 50 people show up at this meeting to have the privilege of joining their team. So they pay $1,200 times 40. And then they weed them out and weed them out. I had a student call me up. She said, I've got to talk to you. I can't believe this happened to me. She said, and she was one of my students. She should have really known better, but she said, I went to one of these flip deals, and I'm sitting there, and I'm next to this guy. And this guy said, and it was $47,000 to join this thing. And this guy looked at her and said, I think this is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm going to jump all over this. Are you going to? And she said, I don't have $47,000. And he said, I'll tell you what, I'll loan it to you. I'm sure he was a shill for that company. And what happened, now she owes $47,000. She said she signed up for it. They flew him out to California for 3 days, wined him and dined him, and they never heard from him again. Guys, don't join one of these. If you have any questions about them, come talk to me, please. And I'll tell you one thing. If you've been in this class for 2 weeks and you join one of those things, after what you've learned in the first 2 weeks, I'm going to expel you and you're not getting back your money, okay? Because you'll know better, even after a couple of weeks here. And when you hear them on the radio, you'll know what I'm talking about, and on TV. They're very, very convincing. And they make millions of dollars every week on people and just rip them off is what they do. So anyway, I'm not naming any names or anything, but expect to see these things out there. You hear them on the radio, see them on TV, and they're really convincing. And so this poor gal, she owed $47,000. I couldn't help her. You know, sure she had to declare bankruptcy to get rid of it. So, then we have, look between the receiver and the administrator, a trustee. A trustee is a three-legged entity. There's 3 parts to a trust. I am going to put a piece of my real estate in trust for my granddaughter, and I'm going to appoint my daughter to be the trustee. Who are these parties? I'm the trustor. I start the action. My granddaughter is the beneficiary, and my daughter is the trustee. So my granddaughter turns 21, my daughter will be able to transfer that property. Trustor, trustee, beneficiary. We're going to cover this many, many times. Because in Colorado we don't use mortgages, we use deeds of trust. We have that 3-prong in every deed of trust. We'll get into that many times. You'll be an expert on it before you're through. And so, my daughter, even though she's transferring real estate, she doesn't have to be licensed within a trust to transfer that property to my granddaughter. So a trustee doesn't have to be licensed. Then we have a conservator. That's one appointed by the court to help incapacitated people who can't take care of themselves. Incapacitated people, conservator. An executor, someone named in a will. Someone named in a will. Then we have a guardian. That's to help somebody who is too young or too old to take care of themselves. Again, a guardian, someone too young or too old. Note here. Okay. Now, there are 2 types of wills. Write this down. Write this down. It's not in any of our material. This is something you need for yourself and something you're going to need when you're talking to your clients out there. There are 2 types of wills. The first one is a holographic will. Holographic. 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 Holographic will. Holographic will. A holographic will is one you'll do in your own handwriting or type it out yourself and just sign it. You don't need witnesses. And in that will, of course, you're going to name what? An executor to carry out what you want to have done. Holographic will. The other type of will is a non-cupative will. Non-cupative. N-O-N-C-U-P-A-T-I-V-E. Non-cupative. N-O-N-C-U-P-A-T-I-V-E. Non-cupative will. You're on your deathbed, and all you can do is talk it out. You do have to have witnesses for a non-cupative will. You have to have witnesses. For a non-cupative will. So there's 2 types of wills, holographic and non-cupative. It upsets me sometimes. I hear people say, yeah, real estate brokers should not act as financial counselors. The heck we're not. We're dealing with these people with the most expensive thing they'll ever buy in their life. You better believe we should be able to talk intelligently about their finances, make sure they understand what they're getting into when they buy a house. That's all our responsibility, and it should be. And also, when you're in your own houses, guys, you're going to be a very knowledgeable consumer from now on. So, we learned several things here. An administrator appointed by the court, because you died intestate without a will and testate with a will. We found out what a trustee is. We found out what the 3 legs of a trust are. Trustor, trustee, and beneficiary. We found out about a conservator, someone who's assigned by the court to help an incapacitated person, and an executor, someone assigned in a will to carry out its provisions, and a guardian appointed by the court to help somebody who's too young or too old. There's nothing in this course we don't say 10, 12, 20 times. And finally, on that 18th time, you get it. And that's fine.
What's the definition of an executor?
I'm sorry?
Definition of an executor?
Definition of an executor is someone you name in your will to carry out its provisions. Executor, you name it in your will to carry out its provisions. Your brother, your friend, whatever. It's totally up to you. You might call them up and ask them if they want to be the executor. But how about when you're working with people? And
The
yeah, Clay?
executor passes away, what happens? Is it passed on?
Very good point. What happens if the executor passes away? Do you want to have two executors there in case one of them dies? Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. You can have your executor appoint an executor, but you're smarter off doing it yourself. Yeah, Michelle?
And then what's the difference between a guardian and a trustee? Because they seem like.
A guardian and trustee, they're appointed by the court. The trustee of, the guardian is appointed by the court. A trustee is just, I set up a trust, remember? Remember, I set up a trust and I set it up. The court doesn't, I do. And then we have a deed of trust. We don't use mortgages in Colorado. We're going to talk about deeds of trust in great detail as we're going through this course. Now, let's go over to page 1-6. Kind of at the bottom of the page, it talks about different things. Let's talk about how our society, how our economics have changed so much. So much. Our economics. Shopping centers. Shopping centers are like dinosaurs. How long is it before we really don't even have shopping centers? You know, like this class. When I first, this school's been around since 1986. I actually purchased it in the year 2000, and when I did, there was one school who had in class, one school that had online. Everybody else was in class. Now there's 3 schools who are in class. Everybody else is online. So I'm either a dinosaur or an innovator, one of the two. We'll find out. But there's still people who want to take it in class. But it's going to reach a point where I'm not going to be able to fill the classroom. I'm pretty sure. Maybe not. What I'd love to see in the class are millennials. People born from 1990 on, we're going to talk about that too. Millennials are interesting. You know, they're a trip. But millennials, I love it. When I got my license, I was either 20, 21 when I got my license. And so I can relate to you guys on what you're going through. And what happens if you're a millennial and you're taking this course and you're 18, 19, 20, you're a high achiever to jump in this course and take it, pass that exam. And once you get that license, you have it forever. And most millennials, let's face it, they learned everything on a computer. I didn't. And they know computers like the back of their hands. And yet, instead of taking an online course, they think enough of their career to take one in class. So again, not picking on Clay, but I love millennials because, like I say, about every month or two I see a hair color I've never seen before. So he's tough, he can take it. Anyway. So, let's talk about these shopping centers. What was the first shopping center in Denver? It was actually JCRS, where Casa Bonita is right now. And when that was built, it was considered a huge shopping center, monstrous thing. Then the next one that was built was Lakeside Shopping Center, right on the other side of the lake here. And it was funny. I was just a little kid then. And Lakeside put this big old sign, it was a fluorescent sign right in front of Lakeside, right by the street on 44th out there. And people used to come from all over the state to drive past that sign, that lit up sign, that fluorescent sign. Talk about a one-horse town, you know. And what happened, I'll tell you what we did on Sundays, what a treat for us on Sundays, my brothers and sisters and I. My mom and dad would take us out to get an ice cream cone, and we go park on the other side of the fence over here and watch the train go around at Lakeside. That was an exciting evening for us. That was a real treat, you know. Anyway, that was the second one that was built. And then Lakeside put a roof over their shopping center. And we thought we were really big time then. Then they built Westland Shopping Center. They built Westminster Mall. They built Villa Italia. They built Cinderella City, which was the biggest shopping center in the world at the time. Almost all of them are gone. There's only a couple, three left. We have what, Cherry Creek? We have Flatirons, they're about ready to tear that down. So that's a thing of the past, really. And we have, which one am I missing? Park Meadows, yeah, Park Meadows still there. They came close to declaring bankruptcy several times. You know, it's a tough go in shopping centers because everything's going to online. That's how much our economy is changing. It's just a flow into online. And we're going to see economic trends that's going to reflect that and how it's going to affect every part of our economy. And it is now and it's going to continue. But it's exciting to see too. Just exciting to see all this happening.
Aren't you kind of surprised that Colorado Mills came out of that whole thing from last
At
year?
Colorado Mills, it's always been a gold mine over there because there's nothing else around it. It's huge, and it's modern. The whole people love that shopping center out there. You know, and the hail hit last year on May 8th, and it just was something else. But they were closed for a year. Pretty incredible, but they got through it. Now, let's go to page 1-7, and we're just going to talk about this pretty much. That number, that Roman numeral 16 there, that XVI, it talks about something, and they don't really name it here, but it's called inverse condemnation. Write that down. INVERSE, inverse condemnation. Inverse condemnation. What inverse condemnation is how the government creates rights of ways. How the government creates easements and rights of ways. Easements and rights of ways. When the government put your utilities in the front of your yard, did they come and knock on your door and ask your permission? Absolutely not. They just came and did it, didn't they? And that's what they do. That's what inverse condemnation is for. The government has condemned for right-of-way all of our airspace, 500 feet and higher above all of our properties for airplane traffic. That's an easement that all of the airplanes have to fly over our properties. I can't send a bill to United for flying over my house. They have a right-of-way, they can do it. Inverse condemnation. We're going to be talking about eminent domain. Those of you who have heard it, let's go through it. What is eminent domain? The government or public taking of private property for the public good with just compensation. You're embarrassing me in front of all these new students. Come on, guys, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Eminent domain. The government or public taking of private property for the public good with just compensation by means of condemnation. Okay? We go over that a lot. You'll be an expert on eminent domain when you're done with this. You won't know what it means, obviously, but you'll be an expert on it, okay? You'll get it down, you'll get it. We talk about it so many times, and people will ask you about it. Eminent domain is when the government comes in and just steals your property. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. I've been involved in several eminent domain cases. The problem with them is if you fight them, the people usually end up running out of money to fight them. But we'll talk about that in greater detail when we get to that and start talking about that part of the course. Now, look on the bottom page 1-7 and look at license required, last paragraph there. It is unlawful for any person, firm, partnership, limited liability company, association, or corporation to engage in the business or capacity of a real estate broker in this state without first having obtained a license from the Real Estate Commission. No person shall be granted a license until such person establishes compliance with the provisions of this Part 1 concerning education, experience, and testing, truthfulness and honesty, and otherwise good moral character, and, in addition to any other requirements of this section, competency to transact the business of a real estate broker in such a manner as to safeguard the interest of the public, and only after satisfactory proof of such qualifications, together with the application for such licenses, is filed in the office of the commission, and determining each person's character, the real estate commission shall be governed by this next section, top of the next page. Look at that second paragraph up there. The second paragraph, where it says, prior to submitting an application for a license pursuant to this paragraph of this subsection, each applicant shall submit a set of fingerprints to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation for the purpose of conducting a state and national fingerprint-based criminal history record check utilizing records of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The applicant shall pay the fee established by the Colorado Bureau of Investigation for conducting the fingerprint-based criminal history record check to the Bureau, and upon completion of the criminal history record check, the Bureau shall forward the results to the Real Estate Commission, and the Real Estate Commission may acquire a name-based criminal history record check for an applicant who has twice submitted to a fingerprint-based criminal history record check and whose fingerprints were unclassified. If they can't read your fingerprints, after 2, they'll just run your name. Now let's talk about this. Don't get paranoid. First of all, they're only concerned with people who have a felony, an actual felony, not a DUI, nothing like that. But if you've had a felony, come see me, we'll talk about it in private. Don't you dare quit this course. What happens is that we're going to help you with this. You're going to write a letter to the Real Estate Commission. We'll get the forces behind you. The last 11 people who have had felonies, I've been able to get them through and get them licensed. I'm not saying I did, good old me. No, it's our system that we have here, where Real Estate Commission knows who we are. And if we give somebody a good recommendation and whatever, then a lot of times that has a lot of weight. So please come see me, and we'll make some plans for it. It's not nobody's business but yours and mine, and we'll handle it from there. I had one lady a few years back, she had a felony for forgery a year before she took this course, for forgery. You can imagine that. And she got her license. So again, don't get paranoid, we'll make it happen. So let's keep going. Now, look at number 2 down here. Every real estate broker licensed under this Part 1 shall maintain a place of business. Not every real estate broker, only employed brokers. There's 3 levels. You're going to be an associate broker for 2 years, underneath an employing broker. Then after you've been in business for 2 years, you can become an independent broker, a one-person shop, nobody working for you. Or after 2 years, you can become an employing broker. It's called the 24-hour broker administration course you'll take. Hopefully you'll take it from us. And then you're an employing broker. So associate broker, independent broker, employing broker. Okay? Now only the employing broker has to have an actual physical address. It can be a room in their house. Actually, an independent broker has to have their own individual address also. You cannot have a post office box. It has to be an actual physical address. But only the employing broker. Like I say, there's mistakes in here now this was written many years ago before we even had employing brokers. That's why they just generally put down a broker licensed under the Act. Look at this 4A, big star. Big star. An applicant for a broker's license shall be at least 18 years of age. At least 8. Doesn't have to have a high school diploma, but they have to be 18 years. We have students in here. Last year we had, I would guess, close to 24 students who were 17. 17. Boy, I admire that. And by the time they turned 18, they were able to pass their state exam, and they're on their way. They'll have that for the rest of their lives, that real estate broker's license. And in this business, guys, the price of these homes, you don't have to sell a home a week to make a living. You can make a wonderful living doing one a month. So yeah, we'll talk about all this too. We talk about other things that will help you get networked into this industry, etc. Now, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back.
Oh, she's awesome. She's really nice.
Okay guys, moving right along. Let's go into page 1-9. Let's just talk about this. You're going to go take your state exam. What's all that about? So this is how it happens. First of all, you're going to set it up. You're going to call up PSI. PSI, we have their phone numbers and everything is in our spindle out in the lobby. You can download it at psi.com. Call them early in the morning if you call them. I call them like 6 in the morning. And that's the best way to get a hold of them and set up that exam. And what happens is that a lot of times they get backed up. Fingerprints get backed up. You want to go down to PSI, same place, and get your fingerprints. What happened with the fingerprints is that several years ago there was this one this one TV station and this one of the reporters, and he found this terrible, terrible evil in our society. They were giving real estate broker's licenses to these people before their fingerprints came back. So they made a big deal about it. And then they decided that every broker, when they renew their license, should get their fingerprints done again. It was taking 7-8 weeks to get your fingerprints through. Then, right about then, the mortgage brokers had to get licensed. It was just a heck of a mess. It was taking weeks and weeks to get your fingerprints done. And I'm really hesitant to say who that radio station was and that person, but their initials were Channel 7 and John Ferrugia. But when you go take the state exam, this is what's going to happen. You're going to leave, they have a locker there when you go in. You can put all your stuff in your locker. You can't take your phones in there, of course. You can't take your purse, your wallet, any pens. You can't take your calculator. Everything's there for you. And I've seen them check behind women's hair to make sure there's no notes there. They'll check the bottom of your shoes, make sure you don't have notes on them. Oh yeah, they're serious about this, guys. So again, don't go in, just go, you're going to be ready for that test. But this is something that you have worked probably harder in your life for. And what's going to happen is now is the time. All the tests and everything you take here in class, those are just practice. I set up all of these tests so that you'll flunk them. I want you to flunk them badly, not because I'm mean, but because every one you miss here, you're not going to miss on that state exam. This is just practice here in class, practicing for the real thing. So you got all this done. You walk in there and the first thing they do is they take your picture. And you're a mess. I mean, your adrenaline is high. I have never seen anybody smile on that picture before the state exam. It's just your eyes are this big, and you know it's a lot of pressure. And so what happens is you walk in there, and you're going to start with the national portion. There's the national portion, then the Colorado portion. You're going to start with the national portion. And that one has 90 questions in it, only 80 count. They have 10 questions they may or may not use later on. And you don't know which ones they are, they don't count for you or against you. But what's going to happen is you can go from 1 to the 90 questions. The last 10 are actually these story questions. And they are just really a pain. 10 questions out of these stories. Now what you want to do is read the question and find it in the story. Don't read that story. I hope you remember that. Read the question first and then look for it in the story. We give you several story questions in your finals. So you'll be ready to look for something and how it works there. And so what's going to do is you're going to go from 1 to 90. And if you're not sure of any of them, just leave them blank. And then you're going to get to 90, they're going to say, do you want to go to the next section or do you want to review? You hit the button review. And then you go from 90 back to 1 and fill in more and more and more. Never change an answer. When you change an answer, you're wrong 80% of the time. Especially women should not change an answer because you guys have that intuition. Female, we don't have it. And I've seen it work many times in women. I know you've got it. So always go with that first answer. Don't change it. I had this lady one time. I graded one of her finals and she had 16 wrong. Every one of them was changed. She missed every one of them that she changed. And every one was right before she changed it. So remember that. Don't change answers. So you're going to go from 1 to 90, then 90 to 1. If you're not sure, just leave it blank and then fill in more and more and more. Now you're going to go from 1 to 90. Make sure they're all filled out. All filled. You have plenty of time. You have 2 hours to do those 90 questions. And they have a time there. You know exactly how much time you have left. Now if you're bilingual, English is your second language, when you set up your appointment with PSI, ask them if they can give you more time. You probably don't need it, but it's worth asking. They may or may not give it to you. Don't panic if they don't. You'll still be okay because you know how much time you have left. And then you're going to get to 90 again, and they're going to say, do you want to go to the next section? And you press the button, yes. And they say, are you really sure you want to go? And you say, yes. Then, seriously, they say, are you really totally sure you want to go? You can't come back if you get out of this. Then you have to type in yes. True story. So you type in yes, then you're in the Colorado portion. The Colorado portion, you have 1 hour and 50 minutes. And in the Colorado portion, you have 80 questions, of which 74 count. So go from 1 to 80, same thing, 1 to 80, then 80 back to 1, and then 1 to 80. Read every question at least twice till you're 100% sure what they're asking. If you have any math, there's very little math. You're going to have 3 to 5 questions, 4 questions on math. If you miss them all, you're still going to pass the state exam. But we cover all those questions here in class. You're going to be ready for them. But every math question, do it until you get the same answer twice. Just some little tricks to do in the state exam. When you're studying, I like using index cards. I'm kind of old school. When you're using index cards, you're looking your sense of sight, your sense of touch. Whenever I take notes, I voice it. I just kind of lip sync it, what the answer is. So I'm using my voice, and also if I kind of whisper a little bit, I'm using my ears. When you're taking in class here, guys, or when you're studying at home or whatever, get in the habit of chewing gum, the same flavor gum, all the time. So when you go into the state exam, they say you can't bring anything in that exam to eat or anything, but usually they don't check for gum. But anyway, it's up to you whether you want to do it that way or not. Now you got your sense of taste in there too. You got all of your senses when you're making these notes and everything. So just little tricks of the trade. Dark chocolate, the darker the better, is a wonderful stimulator for your brain. So remember that also. The morning of the test or whatever. Stimulating. You're going to be studying for the next 3-4 hours. You just look in the conference room. There's probably 18 people in there studying right now. And that's where you're going to be in a few more weeks. And again, they're feeding off of each other to make this work. So you get all the way done, and then they say, yes, were we nice to you? Was the temperature good? All this stuff. Then you press the last button, and it tells you right on the bottom of the screen that you passed and what your score was. Before you stand up, you know you passed. So you go out there, and they hand you your application thing, your picture, and your grades on there, what your grade was, and they hand that to you. And you got a smile you can't get rid of for about 3-4 days. Seriously. What a relief. You get your life back too. Amazing how that works. And so you walk out to your car and you are just high as a kite. You finally, your shoulders are finally dropped. And you walk out to the car and you sit down and you go, now what? And you got homes to list, you got people to sell. Well, that's what the first 2 years are all about. So again, remember that. Remember that. You'll know who to go and interview with. We have our cards on the side over here, and it'll be very helpful. If you have any questions about any particular company, come and ask us. Between Jennifer and Lauren and myself, we know pretty much everybody out there. And we'll be honest with you. We won't call anybody down. That just isn't right. That's very unprofessional. But we'll tell you the ones that we like a lot. So,
Jim,
yeah.
when we go to take the test, do we have to take the certificate that we get here from school?
When you're done with all of your tests that we have 4 of them, then you get what's called an REC 33. An REC 33. And you have to bring that with you to the test site. Take a picture of it with your camera. 'Cause I can't tell you how many calls we get a month from students who say, "Oh, I forgot my certificate, I left it at home, can you print me up another one real quick?" You're only a couple miles away, of course we will. But take a picture of it on your phone. Now you millennials, I know you will. You know, that's a given. I think you're the ones who taught me that. So yeah, you bet. So do the right thing when it comes to that. Now this REC 33, what happened is that there was a time several years back where a lot of students were going down and taking the state exam without that REC 33, and PSI was not testing them, was not checking them. And so they go down there just to see how tough it was, and they'd flunk, of course. I got a hold of Sean Ryan. I said, Sean, do you realize, I'm sure it's not just us, but the students are going down and taking that test, and PSI is not checking if they have the REC 33. And Sean said, I can't believe that's happening. That's really happening? I said, yeah, it really is. Well, what happened is about 2 months later, we get a memo from Sean Ryan. He went through the board of directors of the Real Estate Commission, and they said if anybody goes down and tries to take that license without having been awarded an REC 33, they will be permanently banned from ever getting their real estate license because it speaks to character. I thought, wow, I didn't expect that kind of reaction, you know. But yeah, it makes sense. When you're in this business, you're going to see the crooks out there, guys, and there are a lot of crooks. A lot of people who just find new ways to steal. You know, it's a very big business, but it's a very small business. You'll know who the losers are and who the really good brokers are out there. And again, use your head out there. If you're a thief, come see me after class. I'll give you back your money. Go drive a truck. Stay away from people, okay? But seriously, this is a job where we're dealing with the most expensive thing people will ever buy their entire life many times. We've got to be beyond honest, beyond honest. And there again, that's what your first 2 years are about. You've got this real estate broker looking over you and making sure that you're learning things the right way also. So the way they have this business set up, it works very, very well. And use every piece of it you'll want to. Okay, now, look on the bottom of page 1-9. Let's see. Let's do this. Go to the bottom of page 1-10, bottom of the page, last paragraph. No person shall be licensed as a real estate broker under more than one name. You can only work for one broker at the time. And no person shall conduct or promote a real estate brokerage business except under the name under which such person is licensed. Every dime you make also has to be run through your employing broker. We're going to be talking about RESPA many times in this course, the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. They regulate how closings are supposed to happen and also so we can avoid kickbacks, referrals. We can never give or receive a referral from anybody who isn't licensed as a real estate broker. And nothing to take lightly. But we're gonna find out a little bit here. There's a money trail that goes into every closing. Title companies, lenders, inspectors, appraisers. We can never get money from any of these people on a referral basis or give money to them. But someone outside of the money trail, like roofers, painters, landscapers, whatever, they don't fall in that category. I'm taking a listing on this property and I say, you know, Bob, it looks like you need a new roof. Let's get a roof cert. And I have a cousin who's a roofer. And if you choose him, he's going to give me a 10% referral with your permission. And that's fine, because that's not part of the money trail. But that referral fee has to be run through your employing broker. You can't just put it in your pocket and walk away. There'll be many times where you're going to be sitting at the closing table and either the guy or the lady will reach over you and hand you a $100 bill and say, thanks for the great job. What do most brokers do? Put it in their pocket and forget about it. No, you have to run that through your employing broker, guys, every dime you get. And brokers working for me, if they come up to me and say, here, I got this $100 tip when I was closing the people today, what does that tell me? I've got a winner. There's a really honest person. You know what I'll do when they do that to me? I'll double it. I'll say, that's fantastic. It happened so few times, I can't tell you. So I know a lot of them are just keeping it. Now, if you come to me every time and tell me you got $100, I'm going to get suspicious, you know. But generally speaking, you do, and it doesn't happen a lot. It doesn't happen nearly as much as it should. But there are other ways you make money besides just your commissions too.
Does that have to be written in the contract? For instance, the roofer giving you a referral fee?
Yes, it is. It has to be, you're going to have an amend extent that explains about the roofer is doing this, and the buyer and seller both agree that they see this and they agree that I'm okay to have it. So yes, you can do that. Let's look at the very bottom, page 1-10. We talked about that. Let's look at the top of page 1-11. Talks about attorneys. The Real Estate Commission came up with this piddly little 12-hour class for attorneys to pass the exam. They have to pass the exam just like we do. And what happens, I developed a 24-hour class for attorneys. Even with that 24 hours class, they're not going to pass that exam. And they take that 24-hour class and then they come see me and they say, Jim, there's no way I'm going to pass that state exam. They end up taking the whole course. And every attorney who's taken this course, I've talked to them after they took the state exam, virtually all of them have the same comment. That real estate exam is as tough as the bar exam to become an attorney. That's how tough that mother is. What happens when you pass the state exam, there's that bell out there, do you notice that? You get to ring the bell and then you come in and they talk to us and tell us what the state exam was like. Do you remember who was in yesterday? I think it was Larry who was in yesterday. Michael, I'm sorry, it was Michael, yeah. And he said, that the state exam was a lot tougher than I thought it would be. And I thought it would really be tough. It was even tougher than I thought. Every one of you will have that same opinion. So again, don't take these tests we have in class lightly. And don't take them just to pass them. I've heard people, you're in there taking the test in there and one of you gets it graded and now you have all the right answers. And these other students say, can I have the right answers? No. You're cutting yourselves short, guys. These are just practices for the real thing. Don't cut yourself short. You're going to need to, there's no way you're going to pass that state exam till you know these questions very, very well. You're going to hear me say that till you're sick of me saying that, but I'm going to still keep saying it. You've got to know these questions and answers. Now, on page 111, right where it says number 1 up there. Errors and omissions insurance. You're gonna have to get errors and omissions insurance before you can practice. And the Real Estate Commission approves these people to be able to sell us this errors and omissions. And it's a wonderful, wonderful program that they have. It's very, very good errors and omissions insurance. We're going to cover this when we get to the trust account part of the course in much greater detail. But where you want to go, the main ones are Rice, R-E-I-S, and Williams. I've had Williams forever, ever since they started having errors and omissions. It's the most expensive one. It's $300 a year, less than $1 a day. But the one you want to look into is called Crest Direct, C-R-E-S Direct. CrestDirect.com. Crest Direct, C-R-E-S Direct. And the reason you want to talk to them is because their fee is based on what your production was last year. And you didn't have any production last year. But don't even get errors and omissions until you start interviewing and you decide which broker you're going to go to. Now maybe you're not going to decide till after you take your state exam. That's fine. Then you have to get your errors and omissions before you get your license. Okay? You don't need your errors and omissions before you take your state exam, but before they'll give you your license, you have to have that errors and omissions insurance. So, and go talk to the broker you plan on going to work for and ask them if they have any special deals on errors and omissions. And they very well may. Some of the larger companies. Look on number 1 toward the bottom of the page there, about the second paragraph up. It says, the commission shall make available for each licensee a license in such form and size as said commission shall prescribe and adopt. And every real estate license shall show the name of the licensee and shall have imprinted thereon the seal of the licensee and all that good stuff. And so what happens is you should carry your license with you. You're going through all this misery, and here's your trophy. Isn't that wonderful? I've never had anybody ask me for my license, but keep it in your wallet anyway. And you're going to renew it every 3 years. And we'll talk about that too. I have to have some continuing education and things like that. Look at the last couple lines on page 111. There's 5 members that are actually on the board for the Real Estate Commission. There's 7 for the mortgage brokers. No, there's 7 for appraisers and 5 for mortgage brokers. In the year 2000, I was on the board of directors of the Colorado Association of Mortgage Brokers, and we got approached by the state to get mortgage brokers licensed. It took us 8 years to get mortgage brokers licensed, from the year 2000 till 2008 to get them licensed. Then I was on the committee that created the test for the state exam for mortgage brokers to get licensed. And there were 2 other people who were very, very involved along with me. They were on the board of directors of Colorado Association of Mortgage Brokers. And what happened is after the mortgage brokers got licensed, about a year later, they said, we're going to have a board of directors also for the mortgage brokers. And there were 5 members. And so his name, Bart Bartholomew, Cheryl Dingwell out of Colorado Springs, and myself, all 3 of us applied for it. And the governor came back. And he said, okay guys, there's 5 members on this board. 3 of you, if I put all 3 of you on there, you're going to have a majority vote in everything that happens and you're going to own that board. And we said, cool, sounds good to us. And the governor said, one of you have to step down. So I stepped down. And Bart Bartholomew was the chairman of the board for many years. And Bart comes in here every now and then, and when he does, I just turn you guys over to him. And he talks for half an hour about just cool stuff. So, and Cheryl Dingwell was on there for many years also. So we have a board of directors for the real estate brokers, board of directors for appraisers, and board of directors for mortgage brokers. Speaking of mortgage brokers, it's very important you have other income streams besides just real estate. And we're going to be talking about other income streams you can have besides just being a real estate broker. You don't want to be a one-trick pony out there. You want to have other avenues of income. And we'll talk about them as we're going through this course. And you can come see us, go see Lauren, talk to Jennifer. Jennifer's a licensed broker also. By the way, tomorrow I'm doing my TV show. And who's seen my TV show? Well, I'm glad I'm so popular. Did you see? Okay. But yes, I'm going to do it tomorrow, and I'm on it between 9 and 10. So I'll be back here by 10:15 or so. But I told Jennifer, I said, why don't you teach we're going to do the listing contract. So she's really freaking out. I said, I'll probably record you too. And she panic attacked the whole bit. But anyway, so Jennifer might start the listing contract. She knows it very well. She'll do a really good job. But I'll be back here 10:15 at the latest. So, but anyway, let's keep going here. Bottom of the page, where it says number 1 down there. There is hereby created a committee, oh, that we already just talked about, the 5 members, whatever. Let's go to page 113. Look at that second to last paragraph, where it says, immediate notice shall be given in a manner acceptable to the commission by each licensee of any change of business location or employment, a change of business address or employment without notification to the commission shall automatically, highlight that word, inactivate the licensee's license. Highlight that whole paragraph there. And be careful. Your license is not terminated, it's not canceled, it's just put on inactive status. They used to use that word, it's canceled, it's terminated, and people would freak. No, it's not. It's just put on inactive status until you get with another company.
Is that the same as being put on ice?
Put on ice, exactly. It's inactivated. What if you want to put your license on ice for a while? Get out of the business for a while. That's fine. Now, remember, we don't have salespeople anymore unless your license is on ice. If it's inactivated, then you are considered a salesperson. But when you're practicing, you're an associate broker, independent broker, or employing broker. Single licensing, everybody's a broker. We're the first state to do it. I think a couple states have tried to follow us, but we were the first state to do it. Single licensing. It works very, very well. Look on the top of page 114. In the event that any licensee is discharged by or terminates employment with a broker, it shall be the joint duty of both such parties to immediately notify the commission. Either party may furnish such notice in a manner acceptable to the commission. So it's up to you to notify the commission and your employing broker to notify the commission that you're not with them anymore. Highlight that, big star by that. You can see a question about that. Look in the middle of the page at number 2. Highlight this. The proper fee shall accompany each application for licensure. The fee shall not be refundable. Failure by the person taking an examination to file an appropriate broker's application within 1 year of the date such person passed the examination will automatically cancel the examination, and all rights to a passing score will be terminated. So again, if you send in a check, now you have to do it online. So you have to do it with a credit card. So, but if that credit card for some reason is not valid, they're going to have a meeting to see if they'll even allow you to reapply for your broker's license. Because again, it speaks to character. So make sure that you give them a good credit card number, etc. Let's go to page 115 and look at number 1 up there on top. We have to get our license renewed every 3 years. And the date we get it renewed is actually December 31st every 3 years. December 31st every 3 years. Now, look at number 1 up there. If proper application is made within 31 days after the date of expiration, by payment of the regular 3-year renewal fee. So we have a 31-day grace period to get our license renewed. And if we get it renewed within that 31 days, there's no fine, no nothing. Number 2, if proper application is made more than 31 days, but within 1 year of expiration, the payment of the regular 3-year renewal fee and half that much again. So the 31 days go by, but it's been less than a year, then you pay, like I got mine renewed, I think it was last year, $160. So if I was late, I would have had to pay $160 plus an $80 late fee. So it's not overwhelming. But number 3, if proper application is made more than 1 year, but within 3 years, then it's double. I would have had to pay the $160 plus another $160. So I would have had to pay $320 to get my license renewed.
So what do you do? Like, what do you have to do to renew it? Do you have to take the test again, or?
Absolutely not. Hush your mouth. You never have to take that miserable thing again the rest of your life, guys. No, what happens, no, it just, they give you a 3-year grace period, really. And as long as you renew it within those 3 years, you're fine. You just can't practice, okay, until your license is renewed. I have a buddy of mine, he's been a broker for 25 years, probably 30 years now, and he never has activated his license. He's a mortgage broker, but every 3 years he sends in his fee just in case he wants to become one, he can. So again, but he can't practice real estate now. His license is on inactive status. Then, the next one here. B, any reinstated license shall be effective only as of the date of reinstatement. Any person who fails to apply for reimbursement within 3 years after the expiration of a license shall without exception be treated as a new applicant for licensure. And I get calls from brokers every year, ex-students here, who say, you know what happened, I got my license in Colorado, I moved to Arizona or Texas or somewhere, and I got licensed there, and I never thought I'd be practicing in Colorado again, so I just let my license go. It's been over 3 years. They have to take the course and pass that state exam again. A fate worse than death. So again, make sure that you do it right. Make sure you do it right, guys. Don't let it go 3 years without renewing it. Continuing. All reinstated fees shall be transmitted to the state treasurer, who shall credit same to the Division of Real Estate Cash Fund. So, reinstatement fees go to the state treasurer. Number 5, the suspension, expiration, or revocation of a real estate, it should be employing, put that above that, employing broker's license. Employing broker's license shall automatically inactivate every real estate broker's license where the holder of such license is shown in the commission records as in the employ of that broker. So again, it's not canceled, it's what? It's just on inactive status. Put a star by that, of course. Now, what's going to happen is in the 3 years between you get your license and you renew it in 3 years, every 3 years you have to renew your license, and you have to have 24 hours of continuing education. 24 hours in 3 years, which means 8 hours a year, 1 day a year. Hardly overwhelming. And hopefully you'll come through us and take it. And we develop these classes for you, and most of them I have them recorded online. So some of them I have in class, like our contracts class. Come and take the contract class every 3 years. We're going to do the listing contract tomorrow morning, and then we're going to do the buy and sell contract a couple days later. And you get 2 hours, you get 6 hours of continuing education credits for taking those 2. You only need 24. And every year the Real Estate Commission has a 4-hour mandatory class, an update class, where anything that changes in the industry, and we have to take that 2 of the 3 years. They changed, it used to be every year we had to take that. Only 2 of the 3 years. You have to take the 4-hour mandatory. So that's 8 of your 24. You have 16 hours of electives, taking anything you want to, but they have to be real estate specific, and they have to be approved for that school for continuing education. I had this dynamite course that I developed with this ex-cop out of Boulder one time. He developed this class, he created this keychain for women, where they keep it in their person if they're ever attacked. He put on a 1-hour course how to use that keychain as a weapon. Dynamite class, but it wasn't real estate specific. I couldn't get approved for continuing ed. But look at all these on 116, you don't have to read them. It has to be one of those subjects there, one of those subjects. And that's more for us as a school than you guys. Let's go over to page 1-18. One dash 18, and look at that that number 1 up there. This is go down to F. Go down to F, where it says, in the case of a broker registered in the employ of another broker failing to place as soon after receipt as is practically possible in the custody of that licensed broker employer any deposit money or other money or fund entrusted to the employee by any person dealing with the employee as a representative of such licensed broker. Serious stuff. When you're the buyer's broker, you're working with the buyer, you're going to fill out a contract, and you're going to get an earnest money deposit, aren't you? And that earnest money deposit, what do you do with that? You immediately take that contract and that check and bring it to your office and give it to your employing broker. And always, always do this. Don't forget this. Whenever you give your broker any money, always get a receipt. Well, he's my broker. Get a receipt. Stuff disappears on my desk often. Get a receipt for that earnest money deposit. That's what takes the home off the market. It goes into an escrow account. An escrow account is for OPM, other people's money. Escrow and OPM go together. Other people's money. Why did they call it an earnest money deposit? When the buyer gives us a deposit.
Intent to buy?
What's that?
Because he has intent to buy?
It shows the seller, again, how earnest the buyer is to buy the property. That's why it's called an earnest money deposit. Takes the home off the market. And the more you get, the stronger your deal is. Buyers sometimes will take a lower offer just because they have a higher earnest money deposit tying up that property. Look on number G5. And we're going to cover this a couple other places because it's really, let's look at converting funds of others, diverting funds of others without proper authorization, commingling funds with others, with the broker's own funds, or failing to keep such funds or of others in an escrow or trustee account with some bank or recognized depository. Highlight that recognized depository. On the state exam, the question relating to this is, say, recognized bank depository. And that's wrong. It doesn't have to be a bank. It doesn't have to be a bank. It can, again, most of the time your earnest money goes to a title company who's going to be closing the deal. So again, this earnest money, just remember that. It's going to be a recognized bank depository on the state exam. On the state exam, you're going to have between 8 and 13, 15 questions that are wrong. Some of them are really wrong. Most of them are just a little wrong, like this. This is just a little wrong, but you're going to see that question. Don't miss it. Hopefully that bank will jump out at you, because I have it in the finals a couple times too. Not word for word, but close. Top of the next page. Failing to provide the purchaser and seller of real estate with a closing statement of the transaction containing such information as may be prescribed by the rules and regulations of the commission, or failing to provide a signed duplicate copy of the listing contract and the contract of sale or the preliminary agreement to sell to the parties thereof. We're going to be doing closings here in another couple weeks, and closings are arguably the toughest part of the course. Some of you have taken closings. Would you concur?
Yes.
It's challenging. It's challenging. Only Texas and Colorado require closing class for pre-licensing for a broker's license, which I think is insane. Every state should have closings. That's our dessert. That's what we're working for, is walking in that closing. And you've got to know what happens in that closing, because that's when all the money changes hands. So again, it's not a bank depository. It's usually a title company, but it could be a bank also. Look on in a closing, anything we sign, we get a copy of. Anything anybody signs, they get a copy of it. They changed the law where we don't have to get original signatures until the closing. That's really made it very much easier for all of us. It used to be, back when I first started in this business, guys, well, up until really the mid-90s, you know, every contract was handwritten. If you turned in a typed contract, they just thought you were weird. Like, what are you doing, carrying around a typewriter with you? Who in here has never seen a typewriter? I ask these questions just to make me feel old, I guess. But anyway, and I can't tell you how many contracts I wrote on the hood of my car, on my steering wheel, back then. You know, now, can I have one that's half written and half typed? Sure, as long as it's legible. We're going to cover that in this book here in just a little bit. So again, filling out these contracts and knowing what you're doing is so important. Ask your broker when you're interviewing them, are you going to be with me for my first 3, 4, 5 closings? Or do you look over my contracts before I submit them to anybody? And if he says, oh, for the first couple, run like hell. These contracts, the sales contract is 17 pages. The listing contract's 8 pages. They're monsters. You're not going to fill out one here in class and walk out of this class knowing how to fill it out, but you're going to be familiar with it. Until you fill out half a dozen, 10, 12 of them, you're not going to be familiar with these contracts. Make sure that they agree that they are going to look over all of your contracts before they leave the office. They're the employing broker. They're the ones whose license is on the line, more so than yours. So, ask them that. Go for the training. Go for the training. I'm going to say that over and over again. Go for the training, guys. Let's keep going. Look at the bottom of page 119. Article 3. Toward the bottom of not 119. Is titled Offenses Against the Person and consists of 6 parts: homicide, assault, kidnapping, unlawful sexual behavior, human trafficking, and stalking. And these again are things where, again, you can end up going to jail for, you can end up losing your license for. Article 4 deals with offenses against property, under which Part 1 is arson, Part 2 is burglary, Part 3 robbery, and Part 4 is theft. Article 5 consists of offenses involving fraud, including forgery, obtaining a signature by deception, offering a false instrument for recording, fraud, obtaining property or services like dual contracts. I have a legitimate contract and a phony contract. I use the phony contract to make a deal happen. Fraudulent sales and business practices, unlawful activity concerning the sale of land. Part 4 is bribery. Part 5 is offenses relating to the Uniform Commercial Code. That deals with how personal property is handled in a transaction. We'll cover that later on. Financial transaction devices crimes like ATMs. Part 8 is equity skimming, and Part 9 is identity theft. Let's talk about this equity skimming. What happened is back when you could assume a loan and just sign your name, pay $46, and take over a property, a lot of times these people who bought it would put renters in there, and when the renters paid the rent, they would just pocket it. They wouldn't put it toward the mortgage, and the home would go into foreclosure. The strangest thing about this law is they changed it after 1990. But the first time you do it, it's not a crime. Only the second time. Is that insane or what? It's a class 5 felony the second time you do it. I had this couple in class, and they were renting a property, and it was high-end property, and this lady was taking their rent money and putting it in her pocket instead of sending it to the mortgage. And what happened is they had a rent with option to buy this property. And it started going to foreclosure, and all the foreclosure documents went to the house. So they knew all about it, and they're panicking. And then they said, "What can I do?" And I said, "Well, it's equity skimming, but but she's doing it." And now he said, "But she's a realtor too." I went, "Really?" So I said, "Let's do this. Let's write a letter to the Real Estate Commission. Tell them about this to help these people." And so we wrote a letter, sent it to the Real Estate Commission. About 2 weeks later, we get a letter back from the Real Estate Commission saying she can do it once. Isn't that the craziest law? So equity skimming, you can do it once. After that, it's a felony. Then we have identity theft. Then we have computer crime offenses. Next page. We have Article 6 consists of offenses involving family relations. Article 7, offenses relating to morals. Part 8 refers to governmental operations, specifically bribery and corrupt influence. Article 15 deals with making, financing, collection of loans. Article 17 is the Colorado Organized Crime Control Act. These are the COCA laws of Colorado. They're for organized crime. The COCA laws. And what happens is that people will maybe send two things through the fax. They're doing a corrupt deal. They're thieves. And they do something through they fax something or email something or text something to somebody more than once. That's wire fraud. They just do anything, and they do it more than once. They talk to people over the phone discussing the deal. That again is another type of wire fraud. Through the mail fraud, things like this. And if you get convicted of a COCA crime, it's a class 2 felony. The only thing worse than that is murder. You get life in prison for this. One time, Mark Landrich, I think was his name. He was the head of RESPA, Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. And what happened, there was this one broker, this several years ago, before licensing, and what happened is he was just doing a bunch of loans using dead people's social security numbers to get these loans through. And what happened is they caught him, and they went through a trial with this guy, and this guy who was the head of RESPA said that he was on the stand testifying against this guy for 8 hours. Imagine the head of RESPA testifying against you for 8 hours. He was convicted of 14 felonies. And he said, "I'm not guilty, I don't have to be licensed. All these other peoples do, all these real estate brokers that were involved. You should go after them, not me, because I'm innocent because I don't have to be licensed." I'm sure he'll never see the light of day. I mean, this is just stupid. The other people pled guilty and received their sentences, whatever. Not him, he went to trial. And boy, did he get his lunch. Like I say, there's always a new way to be a crook in this business. And if you're a crook, go drive a truck. Don't work with people. Let's keep going. Article 18 is the Uniform Controlled Substance Act, deals with offenses and penalties. Number 5, violating and aiding and abetting in the violation of the Colorado Federal Fair Housing Laws. We spent a lot of time on fair housing in this class. Failing to immediately notify the commission in writing of conviction, plea, or violation pursuant to this paragraph. If you do get a felony against you, make sure you let the real estate commission know that you got it. Don't just think, oh, I just won't tell them, they won't find out. Believe me, they'll find out. And the next one, having demonstrated unworthiness or incompetency to act as a real estate broker by conducting business in such a manner as to endanger the intent of the public, interest of the public. In the case of a broker licensee failing to exercise, my least favorite word, reasonable supervision. That's such a non-descriptive word. Hopefully I am correctly identifying reasonable, and a judge isn't doing it for me. One of my least favorite words, reasonable supervision over the activities of licensed employees. Procuring or attempting to procure a real estate broker's license or renewing, reinstating or reactivating, or attempting to renew, reinstate, or reactivate a real estate broker's license by fraud, misrepresentation, or deceit, or by making a material misstatement of fact in an application for such a license. And claiming, arranging for, or taking any secret or undisclosed amount of compensation, commission, or profit, or failing to reveal to the licensee's principal or employer, your employing broker, the full amount of such licensee's compensation, commission, or profit in connection with any acts for which the license is required under this Part 1. Go down to W. Failing to keep records documenting proof of completion of the continuing education requirements for 4 years. So if you take your classes from us guys and you lose the document, give us a call. We'll check your records and just print another one for you. But we have to keep all of our records for 4 years. 4 years for all of our records. That's the employing broker and the associate broker. You have to keep them all now for 4 years. And as far as these continuing education credits, don't lie. Don't lie. If they audit you, it could be a criminal offense if you lie on your application. What happened is I had the biggest appraisal firm in Colorado for 12 years. And one of my top appraisers, he is filling out his application for renewal, and he didn't take any continuing education, but he checked the box that he did. And they audited him, the real estate commission did. And this is when licensing of appraisers just started in the early 90s. And they wanted to use him as an example. They were going to get perjury charges against this guy. And he was a good friend of mine. He's one of my top appraisers. And Stuart Leach was the head of the appraisal department down there, and Lee Ormiston was his assistant. And I called him up. I said, Stu, I said, you're going to get perjury against this guy? You know, slap him around, do something, but you're going to really do that? He said, yes, we are. We're going to make an example of him. He's experienced, blah, blah, blah. I said, man, okay. So I went back to my guy and I said, they're coming after you, man. You know, it was a terrible, terrible thing. And so a couple of days later, I went down there. It's a lot easier to say no when or say yes or no when you're talking to somebody face to face. And I said, guys, this is really a good man. He's got kids. He made a stupid, stupid mistake. And I agree he did. But boy, perjury charges? They said, we're going after him. Anyway, so I left there down there. I said, well, we're just, you know, the poor guy's just not going to be able to get out of it. Well, the next day, Lee Ormiston, the deputy, called me up and he said, Jim, he said, this is one of your best guys. I said, yes, he is. He said, well, what we're going to do, we're not going to go after him for perjury. But we're going to take his license away for 6 months and make him take all of those, and a real estate appraiser has to have 42 hours. every 3 years. And he has to take those 42 hours within the next month. I said, thank you. But they get serious, guys. Don't play around with this continuing education. If you haven't taken them, make sure that you don't say you did. Nothing to take lightly. Now, let's go to, page 1-23. Actually, bottom of page 1-22. The settlement services. This is the money trail, guys. All these people here and their functions. This is the money trail that we can never get or give a referral fee from. Are these people right here. And it's very self-explanatory. You can and the receiver is just as guilty as the giver. So don't just take it and think you're going to get away with it. Let's go to 2A. An affiliated business arrangement is permitted where the person referring business to the affiliated business arrangement receives payment only in the form of a return on an investment and where it does not violate the provisions of the state statute. We're talking about affiliated business arrangements. That's a one-stop shop. Write that down there. This one company is a real estate broker. They're also a lender. They may have an inspector in there. They might have a moving company, title company, all of these things under one roof. And you can never receive a referral fee by giving it back and forth within that company, but they may give your people a discount for using them. And that's totally fine. But they can never, again, the affiliated business arrangement within that one-stop shop, they can never give a referral fee for running that stuff through them. Look at E down here, E below the middle of the page. Nothing in this section shall construe to the prohibited payment of a fee to an attorney for services actually rendered. He's acting as an attorney. Of course, you can pay him. A title insurance company to its duly appointed agent for services actually performed in the issuance of a policy of the insurance. Or a lender to its duly appointed agent for services actually performed. So of course we can pay fees to people who are doing their job. Let's go to page 125. And let's go to, below the middle of the page there where it says broker remuneration. Everybody see that? Broker remuneration. It is unlawful for a real estate broker registered in the commission office as in the employ of another broker to accept a commission or valuable consideration for the performance of any of the acts specified in this Part 1 from any person except the broker's employer, who shall be a licensed real estate broker. Now, how about the employing broker you're going to go to work for? He has responsibility for making sure you're trained. And what if this happens? What if you do something wrong in the real estate, and you're underneath my license as an associate, and you do something wrong, and the real estate commission comes after you? Are they going to come after me too? They very well could. It depends what really happened. I got a call from an ex-student, and this lady, wonderful lady, she was working the Hispanic part of town. And doing pretty good, you know, getting their business built up. But she called me one time. She said, "I just wrote my first contract today." I said, "Well, congratulations." And she said, "Well, I really didn't write it. I just had the guy sign it at the bottom. I'm going to fill it in later." I said, "Obviously, you can't do that." She said, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And then about a month later, calls me up and tells me the same thing. And then she said, "The guy trusted me so much. He gave me a $1,000 deposit, didn't even ask for a receipt." What's to keep him coming back and saying that he gave her $5,000 or $10,000? I said, you can't be doing this stuff. I guarantee you, her broker doesn't know that she was doing these things. So if they come after her, they're not gonna go after her employing broker. They know that he would never condone something like that. So it's on a case-by-case basis. Just because they come after you with your license underneath mine, doesn't mean they're gonna come after me. Or your employing broker, whoever that is. Okay. Let's go to page 126. Page 126, and look at the bottom down there, the part 2, down at the bottom, what's talking about there. When are we entitled to a commission? No real estate agent or broker is entitled to a commission for finding a purchaser who is ready, willing, and able to complete the purchase of a property as proposed by the owner until the same is consummated or is defeated by the refusal or neglect of the owner to consummate the same as agreed upon. What the heck does that mean? It means this. I am the listing broker. I list the property. And I bring a contract and present it to the seller. What does this contract say? It says that this purchaser is ready and willing to buy this property. But he has to be ready, willing, and able to buy the property before I can claim a commission. There's a ton of contingencies, conditions in a contract. What are some conditions you're going to see in a sales contract? How about getting a loan? How about the inspection, making sure the inspection came out? How about the appraisal? How about a survey? How about your insurance you can get on the house? All of these are conditions, plus many, many more. And until all of those conditions are met, I really don't have a contract. And once those are met, I have a ready, willing, and able purchaser. Then I have a right to a commission. Any questions on that? Let's keep going here. Look at the last paragraph on page 126. Objections on account of title. No real estate agent or broker is entitled to a commission when a proposed purchaser fails or refuses to complete his contract of purchase because of defects in the title of the owner, unless such owner within a reasonable time has said defects corrected by legal proceedings or otherwise. We talk ad nauseum about title insurance because it's so important. Most people know they need hazard insurance in case a place burns down or whatever, but very few people know about title insurance. And title insurance, if I sell you a house and I give you a deed and you can't resell that house, what is that house worth? Nothing. But with the title insurance policy, it assures you that what I'm transferring to you is merchantable, marketable. And that's done by a title insurance policy. Don't you ever buy a property or allow any of your clients to buy a property without a title insurance premium. Title insurance policy, I should say. We have, and you're going to be exposed to different title insurance companies, and your broker's probably going to have some that they'll expect you to use. And title insurance, again, is the rarest of all insurance because it insures things that happen in the past. Every other insurance you have is for in case you get in a wreck, in case you die, all these other things. Protects you against things that may happen in the future. That may happen in the future. What title insurance does is protect things that defected the title in the past. And so you're going to get this title insurance on every deal you do. And people have for sale by owner, a lot of times they know nothing about title insurance and how important it is. So again, you have to make sure your home is marketable or merchantable. In Colorado, it's up to the seller to provide marketable title. In some states, it's up to the buyer to assure themselves that they're receiving marketable title or merchantable title. We're gonna talk about title until you're sick of hearing about title. So, if you have don't quite understand what I just said, you will understand it before too long here. Let's go to page 1-33. 1-33. Now, what we're going to talk about here is one of the more confusing parts of our industry, and this is how we work with people. How we work with people. We can work as an agent, a transaction broker, or a customer. Don't write that down. We're going to cover it enough. You're going to know it, okay? And what happens is Colorado's the one who came up with all this. In Colorado, we are not real estate agents. We're real estate brokers who may work as an agent. Okay? We're not, now if somebody says, are you a real estate agent? Of course you say yes. That's generic. But in the purest sense of the word, we are not real estate agents. We're real estate brokers who sometimes will work as an agent. Now this is how it works. I'm going to teach it exactly the same way in law and practice, virtually word for word because it's the same subject. But it's handled differently in Colorado than it is on the national portion in other states. I'm taking a listing on this property with these people. I say, folks, I am going to represent you as your agent. What this means is this. It's going to be a master-servant relationship. I'm going to put your needs ahead of my needs. I'm going to obey you in every legal thing you command me to do, and I'm going to try to sell your house for the most I possibly can. I am going to put your home in the multiple listing service and expose it to thousands of brokers. One of them may bring a buyer in, but I'm going to do my darndest to bring a buyer in also. And if I do, I may be working with that buyer as an agent also. I'm going to make that buyer very similar promises. It's going to be a master-servant relationship. I'm going to put their needs ahead of my own. I'm going to obey them in every legal thing they command me to do. I'm going to promise to find them a home for the least amount I can. And I bring them into this house that I just listed. Didn't I just promise these people I'm going to sell their home for the most I can? And promise these other people I'm going to find them a home for the least I can? And I bring them into that house? Total conflict of interest. That's called dual agency. Write that down, dual agency. And it's not allowed in Colorado. In some states it is. On Colorado, it is not allowed. You cannot have dual agency. So I'm still talking to these sellers. And I say, so folks, this is what's going to happen. If I bring in this buyer and I'm representing them as an agent, I will keep representing one of you as an agent, and I'll be working with the other one as a customer. I cannot have agent, but I can have agent, customer. Or I can change both of you to a transaction broker, where I'm not representing either party. I'm assisting the parties. I'm assisting the parties. So I cannot be agent, or agent transaction broker. But I can be agent customer or transaction broker. And I want both sides of the deal whenever I can get it, of course. That's just good business. Let's do this. Keep your fingers here on 133 and flip over to chapter 2, page 32. Chapter 2, page 32. And look at that number 40 up there. Double-ended brokerage relationship. What I just told you, here it is in black and white. And we're going to read it now. We're going to read it again when we get to this part of the course. And you'll understand it better in a few more weeks, okay, or at least a couple more weeks. Let's read it, E40, you ready? Double-ended brokerage relationship. I want both ends of the deal. How can I do that? A broker shall not enter into a brokerage relationship with one party as an agent and the other party as a transaction broker. A broker who works with both the buyer and seller in the same real estate transaction may do so as, number one, a transaction broker for both the buyer and the seller, a single agent for the seller treating the buyer as a customer, or a single agent for the buyer treating the seller as a customer. These options shall be disclosed and made a part of the agreement between the parties to the listing contract, right to buy contract, or tenant contract, even if you're leasing is applied, whichever is appropriate. Make sure you understand that paragraph. Mark it where it's at. Go back to page 133 and mark that. Somewhere in the bottom down there is something. Page 2-32 and E40. And we're going to read that again in a few more days. It's going to make more sense to you because we'll be covering agency in greater detail. But how about this customer thing? In a pure sense of a word, a customer is someone you don't have a contract with, except in Colorado. I can have a contract with you because I'm treating the other people as an agent. Now, so what happens in this, if I'm treating, who's going to volunteer to be the customer? That's a real problem. So you're probably going to go to a transaction broker on both sides. I usually always work as a transaction broker myself, yeah.
The downside of being a customer versus, like, why wouldn't somebody want to be a customer?
Why wouldn't?
Considered in the,
Well, because I'm treating these people as their agent. I'm representing them. You're nothing but a customer.
so it's really the cachet around
It's
it.
semantics.
Yeah.
It really is, but it sounds better. I want you representing. I want you to be my agent. I don't want to be a puny little customer. And that's what you want to run into. I always work as transaction broker, virtually all the time.
Can you just tell them, since I have both parties, I have to represent you as a transaction broker?
If you start out as a transaction broker, yeah, and I do. I start out as a transaction broker. We'll continue with that thought as we're going through this. Now let's say this happens. I take Marie. I say, Marie, let's go find you a house. At that moment, I'm Marie's transaction broker, because transaction broker does not have to be declared. I'm her transaction broker automatically. What is she to me? A customer. A customer. We don't have a contract or anything yet, but then I find her a property and we write a contract. Now things change. She's my client. She's my principal. We have a different relationship, don't we? I have a different responsibility toward her. When she was my customer, what do I owe a customer? Fair and honest business dealings. What does she owe me? Fair and honest business dealings. Now it's different. Now she's on a higher plane. She's my principal. She's my client. And I have a different relationship with her. Like I say, in Colorado, a customer can be someone who you have a contract with. In every other state, it's someone you don't have a contract with. They're just your customer. Okay? And so then, what do? Now, if I have a buyer's agency agreement with Marie, then no matter who sells her that property, I get paid. Even if she finds one herself, I get paid. Now, I take her into a property that I have an agency agreement with that we were talking about. Can I take her in there? Sure. I can take her in there all day long. That's not dual agency until I write the contract. And what's going to happen in the contract, we're going to be doing this. We're going to have a contract where the listing is an agent and the buyer is an agent also. We're going to be doing dual agency. And what happens is that we have a form from the Real Estate Commission called change of status, where I change one of those parties one of those parties to either a transaction broker for both of them or one of them to a customer. Now this is on it, write this down. When do we present this change of status? 3 different answers to this. When do we present this change of status? At time of contract is one answer. When do I present this change of status? At time of contract. When do I present this change of status? When the change occurs. Different answer, when the change occurs. When do I present the change of status? At time of contract, when the change occurs. Okay, you could have one or all 3 of those on the state exam.
What was the last one, I'm sorry?
When do we present this change of status? You'll see this when we do the seller's contract, we'll be doing this change of status form. And when do we present this change of status? When the change occurs. When does that happen? At time of contract. When do we present change of status? At time of contract. Another answer, when do we present this change of status? At time of contract, when the change occurs. You're going to smile when you see that on the state exam, right? You're not going to miss that one. And we'll talk about that several more times. So, look at the bottom page 133. We have the broker, we know what that is. We know what a customer is. Someone I don't have a relationship with, unless in Colorado, I would. Then we have designated broker. That's a little bit different. Let's say I have this. I have Tracy and Diane. They're both underneath my license. Okay? I'm their employing broker. And Tracy comes in and says, hey, I got a listing on this house last night. I say, congratulations, Tracy. I'm going to designate you to be the broker for those sellers. And she said, can I work with them as their agent? I'll say, it's your deal. You bet. You're the designated broker for the sellers. The next day Diana comes in with a contract to purchase it. And I say, that's great. And she says, can I work with the purchasers as an agent? And I say, yes, you can. Now, both of these people are underneath my license. That's not considered dual agency because it's designated agency. I've designated them to be the brokers for that deal. Question on the state exam says, in designated agency, the employing broker establishes for himself no agency. I've created for myself no agency. The people working under me are the agents for the two people. I can even go this far. I can say, well, but you know what? This is a $2.5 million house. Neither one of you ever had anything that big. I am going to designate myself to be part of that deal also. And I'm going to take a bigger cut.
So this is the same transaction?
Same transaction, yeah, and I'm going to take a bigger cut. What are you guys going to say? You're probably going to say thank you. You don't want to lose that $2.5 million deal. Now, I'm one of the designated brokers. I've still established for myself no agency because they are the agents for both sides of those deals. I'm merely working as a facilitator to assist them. Clear as mud?
Could you do that definition one more time?
Oh, the designated agency? A designated agency, the employing broker establishes for himself no agency. The employing broker establishes for himself no agency. Now, if I'm working with my sister, my brother, my best friend, something like that, I always have to work as an agent. How can I tell the judge that I'm not working with my sister? I'm not representing my sister. You will always work as an agent in those type of situations. Paisano Real Estate. Anybody here going to Paisano? You're not? Okay. Did you have a question?
No, I just know who they are.
Oh, you know who they are. They're on 39th and Federal over here, guys. Angel Hernandez got his license here about 14 years ago. One of the top brokers in Colorado. And they market to the Latino community over there. And one of the best brokers in that part of town. If, like I say, 39th and Federal on the east side, you can't miss it. Go in there and tell Angel you're going here to school. And talk to him, interview with him. He's too shy to come in and talk to the students, so you're on your own. But one time I was teaching them some continuing ed classes. And I said, yeah, you should work as a transaction broker whenever you can. And he took me aside and he said, you know, Jim, he said, virtually everybody we work with,
Pizza's here, Mara's here.
okay, everybody we work with, English is their second language. Some of them don't even speak English, and we're interpreting that contract for them. How can we not say we're their agent? I went, never thought about that. I learned something that day. And again, so if I'm working in that capacity where I'm interpreting the contract for these people, I better be working as their agent. I'm dealing with a family member, I better be working with them as an agent. Okay, that's the end of lesson number 1. See you guys in about an hour.